Hello and welcome to Barbara's podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Well, hello and welcome to the show where we explore the world of holistic health and wellness. Today, I'm super excited to introduce Daniel Lucas, the inventor and founder of the Sprout Spout, Superfoods on Tap. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, glad to be here, Barbara.
Well, tell me a little bit, what was the inspiration behind Sprout Spout and what motivated you to create it?
It was during the pandemic, during the lockdown. I was cooking food for my family and I was really focused on nutrition. And with the farmers markets had been shut down for several weeks and the grocery stores were pretty barren. And I thought about, things like protein, it's pretty easy to put in the freezer or in a can. But when it comes to things like micronutrients, it's hard to get those into your diet. Lots of antioxidants when things are being shut down. I started thinking about people that were in like New York. How would I create a solution to where they could have antioxidants and micronutrients on tap? And I was sprouting in a mason jar. I was very frustrated with it. I ended up throwing out several batches in a row, and some of those seeds are not cheap. So I started looking at it, and I very, very foolishly thought that I could come up with a better solution in like 5 weeks or something like that. And it ended up taking me about 3 years and 13 prototypes to get to the Sprout Spout. And it makes much larger harvest than a jar. And it also has airflow, which is the part that's patented, which allows it to prevent mold and mildew from occurring in the device.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite passionate about sprouting, and I call it kitchen gardening.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, 4 days, four days,
Yeah.
and you got a huge batch. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many nutritional benefits from it. They're rich in proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, all sorts.
Yes, specifically the broccoli. I'm just wrapping up an ebook that it has like the health benefits, and man, the broccoli sprouts are the alpha sprout of that because of the sulforaphane content.
Yeah. Well, sulforaphane is very powerful. You get some cancer preventative benefits from it as well.
There are a plethora of benefits. As the ebook I've been writing has kind of outlined everything. In fact, I was preparing for this interview and I looked up like perimenopause. They did some studies on perimenopause women and the reduction in menopausal symptoms if they had 70 grams of cruciferous vegetables per day. And in the case of broccoli sprouts, it is the most potent form of cruciferous vegetable. There are 13,000 grams of sulforaphane in a 100 cup serving, milligrams. And I think the closest thing, like broccoli has like, I think 200. So it goes from 200 to 13,000, and kale has 2,000. So it is by far the alpha in terms of getting those very, very potent antioxidants.
Absolutely. And sprouts are definitely easier to digest. So especially when it comes to lentils and beans, where some people might react to those.
That's correct. Yep. Mung beans are one of my go-tos for snacks, and they're actually quite carb friendly for people out there who are trying to watch their carbs because it's when it sprouts, it's almost a keto food based on the way that the carbohydrates digest.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these seeds and pulses have phytic acid in them. And when they're sprouted, it's reduced up to 8%.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes, a lot of the minerals like zinc or calcium bioavailable. That's right. And easier to digest.
You're very knowledgeable on this stuff, Barbara.
Yeah, well, it was one of my it's one of the workshops that I teach. I used to, especially in the past, it was very uh, quite often. So it's one of the subjects that I know quite well.
Yeah,
Um,
I was actually surprised. I was doing some research for that ebook, and I'm a pretty athletic person. I used to be an ultra marathoner. I still train about an hour a day in the gym and stuff. And there was a lot of studies on how quickly sulforaphane assists you in recovering from workouts, and that's one where I thought both men and women could get some good benefits. I know I have a tendency to train too hard even when I'm sore.
yeah,
And so I kind of looked at it, and when I summed up the article, I said, if you're training for a marathon or something like that, it would behoove you to have 1 cup of broccoli sprouts per day for the 2 weeks leading up to the marathon, based on the studies in terms of what is called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness.
yeah. Um, in your book, did you come upon nitriloside content in the sprouts?
No, tell me about it.
One of them is nitrilosides. So nitrilosides are like water-soluble substances that occur in large quantities in the growing tips of seeds and young shoots. And they were first isolated by a Californian physician, Ernest T. Krebs. So you could have a look at that. And he found that sprouted grains are rich in nitrilosides, especially, for example, alfalfa, mung beans, aduki beans, lentils.
Yes.
And when the sprouts are digested by the body and broken down, they release two chemicals, cyanide and benzaldehyde. And normal cells can protect themselves from these chemicals, but cancer cells can't, so they die. And nitriloside content in sprouts and grasses and legumes is often 50 times greater than that of a mature plant. So
Wow.
definitely a big, especially for cancer prevention, definitely a big fan. And then there was this other study linked to the chlorophyll in sprouts. And
Yeah,
this was,
it's funny you
yeah,
mentioned the chlorophyll, because I had been sprouting for a couple
yeah,
of years, and I always wondered, why was it that in some of these pictures people have these bright green sprouts and then mine are kind of dull.
yeah.
Do you know the answer to this, Barbara?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you, because I was kind of shocked. I learned something when I researched this.
Yeah,
If you take your sprouts the
yeah.
day before you harvest them and put them in the sun, it'll
Yeah,
kick off photosynthesis and the chlorophyll, and it'll turn them bright green,
yeah,
just based on sun exposure for like a day. So now I tend to put them in the sun. Now I do warn people. I say, when you turn them bright green, they will be more bitter than they were
yeah.
before. But if that doesn't bother you, fine. It doesn't bother me. I like my salads to have that bright green color in them.
Me too. Me too. I think when I saw, especially with mung beans, when you see these little leaves sprout, coming
Yeah.
through, then that's the time to put them into the sun so they go all nice and green. Um, so tell me about digestion. Have you done any research on that? How they
Not
can aid digestion or gut health?
not exclusively, not exclusively. I'd love to hear your input on it. I mean, there are, like you said prior, there are a lot of benefits to sprouting things like beans that they'll digest a lot better for people when they're
Yeah.
sprouted. Yeah.
Okay. No, well, it depends. There's all sorts of different sprouts, they're just definitely high in fiber. They're
Hmm.
high in antioxidants.
Yeah.
They help with gut motility. Like you mentioned, the broccoli sprouts contain sulforaphane, and that helps with detoxification with the gut lining. And just all general, I think they're high in enzymes, so that helps with digestion.
Yeah. Alfalfa is probably one of the most touted benefits of alfalfa sprouts.
Yeah.
is that they are very good for your blood sugar regulation,
Oh, wow.
and they're also good for digestion as well.
I found they were the hardest to sprout.
Oh
And it
no,
took me a while. I
I
couldn't
have the
use my traditional jar. I
I
eventually
have
I
the
bought
exact
one.
opposite problem, Barbara.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
jar right here, none of the sprouts will sprout bigger than alfalfa in this.
yeah. Oh,
This
wow.
thing, this thing will be so full,
Yeah.
and this you can see it's the size of my head. This thing will be so full, it will be like someone has compacted alfalfa in here. That's the one sprout that it almost doesn't have enough room for is alfalfa.
Oh, well, that's good to hear because really I struggled with them, and then eventually I found out that if I just lightly spray them with the
Hmm.
spray, they wouldn't get because I think
Oh, you're saying they got
problems.
overly hydrated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and one of the problems I think in using a jar,
yeah,
even though you rinse them quite well with alpha, they would get moldy.
yeah.
And I think the grasses were really tough. So like wheatgrass, barley grass, all that was quite difficult in a jar. So I'm very happy
Mhm.
that you've come up with this invention. I think it'll help so many people create to grow their sprouts
Yeah.
and avoid them getting all moldy and
The feedback has been very positive in terms of people, especially people who have been using a jar for years. I get every now and then I'll get an email from someone saying like, I have never had this many sprouts in my house in terms of, and I tell them the broccoli sprouts, if you freeze them, the sulforaphane content remains even after they're frozen.
well,
So you
that's
can use,
interesting.
yeah, so you can actually use them in your smoothies and things like that. And the reason I say that is because when you start harvesting with this thing, it's a lot of sprouts. And
Yeah.
now I go through a lot, but for someone who just wants a handful every couple of days, you're going to need to freeze it or give away a lot of the sprouts that you make. But I generally try to make one for snacking, like mung beans are great for
Mhm.
snacking. You were going to say something, Barbara?
I was just going to say, couldn't you just add less seeds? So you time it
Of
that you put
course.
in less,
Yeah.
and then, if they're ready every 2 to 3 days, so you consume them. And
Yeah. You can always add less seeds. You can harvest less. I think I created this little cup promotional good, this cup that measures out the max amount that you
okay.
can put. And when people put that max amount, I think they're a little shocked at how many, especially if they've been sprouting in jars for a while, they sprout it and they go, I don't know what to do with all these sprouts, which is I take that as a big compliment.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you could add them to soups. You could add them to
Mhm.
salads.
So for broccoli sprouts, you can heat them to 150 degrees and
Yeah.
don't take them too far past that because that's when it starts to take the antioxidants. But I don't preach this, but if you really want the maximum sulforaphane content, you heat them to 150 degrees for 5 minutes,
Okay.
and it will like supposedly double the sulforaphane digestibility or content in there.
Yeah. Okay. And if someone was going to start, which which one would you tell them to start with? Which seed or
If you want the easiest sprout,
yeah.
we carry 4 sprouts on our website, specifically designed for the sprout spout. And the easiest one to sprout, in my personal opinion, and the best for snacking is
Yeah.
mung beans. Um,
Mung beans.
you put in a cup and a quarter of unsoaked, like when measure out a cup and a quarter of mung beans. You can do a cup to play it safe. And when you soak mung beans, as you know, Barbara, they triple in size. And so you have to put them in a container big enough to soak for 12 hours. Now, that will make a lot of sprouts, and it only takes 2 to 3 days after you've rinsed them. They will be ready to eat. To me, those are one of the most underestimated sprouts because they're so versatile for snacking. They taste like a combination of edamame and sugar snap peas.
Yeah.
You can do something like put them in a bowl with a piece of burrata cheese
Oh,
and
yeah.
then some truffle oil and some truffle salt, which is my favorite way to eat them. It makes a delicious sweet salad with lots of crunch, lots of fiber, lots of gut friendly activity there. So that's the one that I people are kind of shocked because they're like, well, you talk about the health benefits of broccoli sprout, and I say it is, but the easiest one that's almost fail proof is mung beans. You almost can't overwater them, so
Yeah.
that's a benefit too. Um, I think alfalfa is the second easiest in this jar. I mean, this is one where your alfalfa just takes off when you put it in there.
Was my favorite lentil sprouts, and I actually have a jar right now. I find them the easiest.
Yeah, we have we call it the Wellness Warrior Mix, and it's
Yeah,
lentil, mung, radish, broccoli, and alfalfa, and it's just
that
a mix
sounds
of all
amazing.
five. So it just, and the reason that mix works for a lot of people, they want variety of textures when they
Yeah,
eat. And then if you know anything about sprouts, you don't want, if you're like me, you don't want a whole lot of radish in there. If you put too much radish, it has a major bite when you bite into it.
yeah. I can imagine. It must be quite spicy.
You
It
know,
opens
actually,
up all your airways.
yeah, I actually had someone ask me yesterday through the website. They were open the chat and started asking me questions like, "What about this? What about this?" And they said, "Why is it when I bite into broccoli or radish sprouts, it burns my mouth?" And I actually looked it up, and it's the glucoraphanin it's the glucoraphanin in the sprouts. So
Yeah.
I learned something.
Well, we learn something every day, you
Oh,
know.
well, you hope to. We hope to. Yeah. I love learning new things. I really do, Barbara. Curiosity is one of the things in the second half of my life now. I leverage curiosity as a learning tool.
Yeah. Oh, well, me too. Me too. I think I always like to dive in deeper into a subject.
Yeah. Well, writing this ebook, I have definitely been neck deep in. I use a AI tool called Perplexity to
Yeah.
research studies, and then I use a couple of other tools. But it's been great. We have, in fact, um, part of my job is testing like smoothie recipes for the book. And
Okay.
so today, this one has a cup of broccoli sprouts. They were
Yeah.
frozen. Um, uh, it has a cup of blueberries.
Yeah. I can
It
see.
has a full scoop of protein powder. It has 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds.
Yeah.
And then I threw in this was something I was playing with the recipe to, if you don't want much vegetal taste from the broccoli, throw in a half a frozen banana and it'll kill that sort of
Cancel it
veget.
out.
Yeah, it'll cancel it out. Yeah. So far I'm really liking this one. This one's going to make it in the book, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, this is it. You've got to come up with some really good recipes that people will like, because I think there's not many people out there that go for a pungent kind of flavored smoothie.
Yeah, that's part of why I'm writing the book. The entire fourth chapter is nothing but recipes. So it's salads, wraps, and smoothies is the 3 sections of the fourth chapter. And they can get the ebook for free. All they have to do is go to sproutspout.com, and it's coming out by Christmas is what I've committed to.
Okay. Well, it's always good to put, goals and
Bullet.
dates to them.
Yeah. I would end up geeking out and just dragging this thing out and never finishing if I didn't set a time. So
Well, look, I think if you create another one with like a vitamin C rich, with some orange juice and berries and alfalfa sprouts, that could be like an immune boosting.
I have the vitamin profiles for every one of my sprouts, and I think people will be surprised at how many vitamins are in broccoli sprouts.
Yeah.
They'd be shocked. Vitamin K as well.
I know. So there was another study, let me have a look at it, where they were saying that the vitamin C content in soybeans
Mm-hmm.
increased by 553% after 72 hours. And another experiment found that 40 grams of sprouted oats had 15 milligrams of vitamin C,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be like an equal amount to fresh blueberries or blackberries. And so it's amazing that these little powerhouses are, so full of, vitamin C, zinc, sulforaphane,
Yeah,
calcium.
I try to encourage people to go for natural sources of vitamin C that
Yeah,
maybe don't involve juice. And the reason is because things like, when you drink orange juice, it has a ton of sugar. I much prefer people eat the orange.
yeah,
Um, just because when you start looking at 20 ounces of orange juice, for example, some people in the South here will have 20 ounces. And I'm like, that's about 70 grams of sugar right there. I mean, that's a good bit. But anyways, I'm I think you nailed it on the head, which is you can get your vitamins, your minerals by just basically some of these natural sources. And while supplements are good, they're just that. They
yeah,
supplement a good diet.
yeah. I think some of the other benefits of kitchen gardening is that you control the water,
Yeah,
that there's no pesticides or herbicides in the food.
that's exactly right. In fact, I did not know about this. There is a group of people that are histamine intolerant.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard of this.
Yeah.
I think it's
They-
called like HIT or something, but
They've got MCAS or
okay.
yeah.
So they can't eat any vegetables that have been grown and transported because there's too many histamines on them. And the exception is sprouting. They can sprout and because of, like you said, they can control all the elements right there on their counter and ensure that there's no histamines on them. They can consume them.
Yeah.
There are 13.7 milligrams of vitamin C in a 1 cup serving of broccoli sprouts.
Okay. I suppose that's good to know. And if you could combine it with some other
Yeah,
vitamin
with
C
like the
rich.
blueberries and yeah, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, but even in a salad, you could add red pepper.
Oh,
Which is
absolutely. In a salad? I was just talking about a smoothie. In a salad, absolutely. I mean, for example, an orange bell pepper has 4 times the amount of vitamin C as an orange. I
yeah,
mean, and it's one of those things that I think is one of the most underestimated. Just throw an orange bell pepper in. It has a nice sweet crunch to it,
yeah,
and it has tons of vitamin C. This is why those candy companies figured this out a long time ago. You hold a handful of Skittles in your hand, and the reason your brain is attracted to all those colors is because when you look in nature, the antioxidants are basically colored. The purple cauliflower, for example,
yeah,
and all these in the orange carrot from the beta carotene. Your brain was wired to be attracted to those as natural antioxidants. We've kind of obviously hijacked that with, the ultra processed foods. But the
yeah,
point of that is to say your eyes can help you identify antioxidants as well.
yeah, absolutely. Did you come across any challenges when you were making the Sprout Spout?
I st- of course I did, Barbara. I tried to throw in the towel like 3 different times.
Oh no.
We had a lot of manufacturing issues because they were just like, and it was one of those things where like if this could be done, it would have been done already, is what essentially they
Okay.
kept telling us. Um, and if you look at some of our, like, just as I was creating this, a couple of other companies, one specifically came out with like a product, and
Yeah,
they're all just mason jars. They
yeah,
just essentially just made mason jars with fancy lids, and to me, it was like, that's not innovation. And when I went to the factory over and over and said, I want this to operate this way,
yeah,
they essentially said, it would cost like an enormous amount of money. So there were, like, you ask what my roadblocks were. There were 2 times where the factory basically said it can't be done, and I sat on it for 3 months and just basically had a prototypes hanging around my house, and when I would just go over there when I was bored, tinker with them and go, "What if I did this? What if I did this?" And I
yeah,
finally went back to them and said, I'll tell you one specific issue. When I wanted it to be super easy to
Yeah.
disassemble. You'll see I just like that in the bottom.
Open it up. Right.
Yeah. So when it comes to cleaning this, the bottom, the factory wanted me to do what all the other mason jars do, which is just put a plastic lid on the top, and it's great.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, that plastic thing, it gets mold and mildew. It just doesn't breathe well enough. So we
Yeah.
ended up having a stainless steel disc created that slides in here into place and then locks
Oh,
into place in the jar.
fantastic.
Yeah. So that you can just literally just throw this in your dishwasher or wash it by hand. This is really the only part that even gets dirty. The jar, this jar, you'll probably never have to like throw it in your dish. I just wipe it out because it breathes so well. It doesn't get grimy. And you can use it over and I mean, I'm still using prototypes from like 2 or 3 years ago because they look the same. But that was the biggest roadblock, was I wanted it to be where it breathed well, and it was you could disassemble it and throw it into the wash if you wanted to. Because when you think about it, Barbara, I mean, you obviously are very devoted to your health. I can tell from just talking to you. And if you deal with people in general, what you will find is that for every hurdle that exists between them and getting, say, sprouts or healthy food or organic things, every hurdle that exists is there's a percentage of people that are like, I'm just not willing to do it.
Yeah.
So I looked at that hurdle and said, if I can't get it to the point that it's so stinking easy that people basically it becomes a no-brainer, then they're just not going to do it. And they'll have every reason in the world to say, well, I'll just buy sprouts when it's convenient or whatever. And quite frankly, when you go to the store and buy market, you can't buy broccoli sprouts in the store in generally because they're not shelf stable. But if you're at a farmer's market and you buy a cup of broccoli sprouts, get your wallet ready. Because those farmers are growing that in a mason jar for 5 days and they get one big handful is what they get. So that's why they're charging you like $8, $9. The price of growing sprouts in the Sprout Spout is about 75 cents for a large handful is what we're running at right now. When I do the math for us to ship it to your door, we have a subscription seed service. It runs about 75 cents. That means for 75 cents, you can add a large handful of organic, non-GMO, like you said, I'll say it like you, vitamin loaded nutrients and antioxidants to your day. And like you said, you don't have to sprout the full jar. And
No.
if you want to sprout a full jar, and I even with me, when I sprout a full jar of broccoli, I'll freeze half of it just so I can have smoothies next week. Sulforaphane stays in your system for 48 to 72 hours. So if you do it twice a week, that's what some of the experts recommend. You'll have that constant supply of antioxidants and sulforaphane running through your system.
Running through your system. That's well, I love it. I think it's very practical. So I'm a very practical person. The simpler the better. You don't want to get things complicated. I think, for example, juicing. Oh my goodness.
Well, I don't agree with I don't juice just because I think you throw too much baby out with the
Yeah.
bathwater on that one. And so when, for example, people juice apples and carrots, I go, I cannot believe you're throwing out that pulp. That's where all the fiber and a lot of the and there's I think I'll have to verify this, but I think there's something like 10 times the amount of antioxidants in a carrot than carrot juice.
Yeah.
And that's where I go, this is valuable stuff here. Please don't throw it out. I understand that it's palpable, but
Yeah.
like you said, it's not only that, it's a hurdle, like you said, to clean those things out and everything.
No, it is. Well, it depends. There's the pulp. I don't juice every day, but I don't like waste either. So a lot of the pulp I'll freeze, and if it's carrot and apple pulp, I'll turn it into a healthy carrot cake, or
Yeah.
I'll just get imaginative so as not to throw it away.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, in closing, where can our listeners get in touch with you if they did want to buy a Sprout Spout or?
Please do. Sproutspout.com is the easiest way. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, we run a lot of promotions and things like that.
Okay.
And we focus every time we put that newsletter out, we focus very hard on like how much free content we can possibly give people, whether you buy my device or not. I don't tell people don't buy mason jars. I think they're a great entry level tool. But anyone who's used one for a while and is ready to upgrade, they'll know what I'm talking about here. So that's sproutspout.com. And then my Instagram, we have an Instagram for the Sprout Spout. It's called The Sprout Spout. But my personal Instagram is at DP Lucas. And I do a lot of cooking videos, by the way. I do put sprouts in some of them, not all of them. But I'm wrapping up a really long form content of making sourdough from beginning to end. I've been doing that for years, and everyone always asks me like, walk me through the process, and I'm like, okay, I'll just make a video from start to finish, the entire process.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Daniel, for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you as my guest.
Thank you, Barbara. It's an honor to be here. I learned a lot from you too.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.